Good morning, students. I hope you are fine and in good shape and in good health. And your family members are all well. Please take care of yourself and stay indoors. And I hope that we will together come out of this situation very soon. So, in today's class, we'll be discussing about the nature and scope of company. So, first of all, we will try to understand what is the meaning of a company and what a company actually is under Companies Act, and what are the kinds of company, as well as what are the major features of a company which make it different from other forms of business organizations like partnership firm, LLP, that is limited liability partnership, and other sort of business enterprises, right? So let us begin. Now, first of all, we will try to understand what is the meaning of a company. The word company has no strict technical or legal meaning. It may be described to imply an association of persons for some common object or objects, the purpose of which people may associate themselves are multifarious and include economic as well as non economic objectives. But in common parlance, the word company is normally reserved for those association for economic purposes to carry on business for gain. Used in the aforesaid sense, the word company in simple terms may be described to mean a voluntary association of persons who have come together for carrying on some business and sharing the profit therefrom. Indian law provides two main types of organizations for such associations: partnership and company. Although the word company is colloquially applied to both, statute regarding the companies and company law as distinct from partnership and partnership firm. The partnership law in India is codified in the Partnership Act 1932 and Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008. As I've already told you, the features of a company, when we study, we'll understand how the company is different from LLP and partnership firm. Both these legislations, that is the Partnership Act of 1932 and Limited Liability Partnership Act of 2008, are based on the law of agency, each partner being an agent of the other, and it therefore affords a suitable framework for an association of small body of persons having trust and confidence in each other. A more complicated form of association with a large and fluctuating membership requires a more elaborate organization, which ideally should confer corporate personality on the association. That it should recognize that it constitutes a distinct legal personality, subject to legal duties and entitles to legal rights separate from those of its members. This can be obtained easily and cheaply by registering an association as a company under the Companies Act. It should be noted that the Companies Act 2013 even allow a company to be formed and registered for the promotion of art, commerce, science, sports, religion, or for charity for non-economic purposes. So it does not matter. It really doesn't matter whether the company has to carry on some business for economic gains. The company can be formed for charitable purposes also. That will also be covered within the definition of a company under the Companies Act. So here we shall limit in this presentation, we will be limiting our scope of study only to companies registered under the Companies Act or under any earlier Companies Act. So let us first of all, before jumping to the features of a body corporate or a company, first of all, let us understand what is the meaning of a company or according to the Companies Act 2013. So the Companies Act 2013 does not define a company in terms of its features. Section 2 clause 20 of the Companies Act 2013 defines a company to mean a company incorporated under this act or under any previous company law. This definition does not clearly point out the meaning of a company. In order to understand the meaning of a company, let us see the definitions as given by some authorities. Some of these definitions are: Lord Justice Lindley has defined company as a company is an association of many persons who contributed money or money's worth to a common stock and employed in some trade or business and who share the profit and loss arising therefrom. The common stock so contributed is denoted in money and is the capital of the company. The person who contribute to it or to whom it pertains are members. The proportion of capital to which each member is entitled is a share. The shares are always transferable, although the right to share is often more or less restricted. So, this is a definition which is given by Lord Justice Lindley. Another definition is given by Chief Justice Marshall as a corporation is an artificial being, invisible, intangible, existing only in contemplation of the law, being a mere creation of law. It possesses only the properties which the charter of its creation confers upon it, either expressly or as incidental to its existence. Another definition is given by Professor Haney as a company is an artificial person created by law having separate entity with a perpetual succession and a common seal. I find this definition of Professor Haney as the most simplified definition in a lucid manner which crystallizes or which encompasses every aspect of a company in within a line or within a para. That is, a company is an artificial person created by law having separate entity with a perpetual succession and a common seal. So the above definition clearly brings out the meaning of the company in terms of its features. A company to which Companies Act applies comes into existence only when it is registered under the Companies Act. On registration, a company becomes a body corporate. It acquires legal personality of its own, is separate and distinct from its members. A registered company is therefore created by law, and law alone can regulate, modify, or dissolve it. So, this is the entire definition of a company as given in the Companies Act. And I hope that you have understood what is the meaning of a company, especially under the Companies Act. Now, let us discuss what are the features of a company or a body corporate. So, one of the most important feature of a body corporate is incorporated association. A company must be incorporated or registered under the Companies Act. Minimum number of members required for this purpose is 7 in case of public company and 2 in case of private company. However, Section 3 of the Companies Act 2013 allow formation of one person company also. The second definition, second feature of a company is legal entity distinct from its members. Unlike partnership, the company is distinct from the person who constitute it. Hence, it is capable of enjoying rights and of being subjected to duties which are not the same as those enjoyed or borne by its members. As Lord MacNaughton puts it, the company is at law a different person altogether from its subscriber. And though it may be that after incorporation the business is precisely the same as it was before, the same persons are managers and the same hand receive the proceeds. The company is not in law the agent of the subscriber or trustee for them, nor are the subscriber as members liable in any shape or form, except the extent and in the manner provided by the Act. The first case on the subject, even before the famous Solomon case, was that of Kondali Tea Company Limited, Ray. In this case, certain person transferred a tea estate to a company and claimed exemption from ad valorem duty on the ground that they themselves were the shareholders of a company, and therefore it was nothing but a transfer from them in one to themselves under another name. Rejecting this, the Calcutta High Court observed the company was a separate person, a separate body altogether from its shareholders, and the transfer was as much a conveyance, a transfer of the property, as if the shareholders has been a totally different person. In the total shareholding of the company is purchased by one person or a group of person acting in concert. The legal consequence is not the company ceases to exist or undergoes a cataclysmic metamorphosis leading to its complete disappearance. Again, by changing members of the board of directors or by changing shareholding pattern, a company does not become a different entity. Unlike a partnership firm, a company is a different entity and need of company in which a landlord is a director cannot said to be in need of landlord for his own occupation. Therefore, landlord cannot file a suit under Section 11, Clause 3 of the Kerala Building Act 1965 for the occupation of building owned personally by him for functioning of the company merely because he is a director of a company. That was held in the case of K.M. Bashir versus Lona Chakola. Right. So, so we can say that the separate legal personality of a company is the bedrock of company law, and piercing the veil of a company is permissible only in exceptional cases, which we will study later. How the separate legal entity principle of company can be excused by the courts or can be exempted by a court in certain cases. There is another case of Rajendra Nath Datta versus Shivendra Nath Mukherjee. It was held that for any wrong done, the company must sue or be sued in his own name. It was observed that as a company is a distinct legal personality distinct from its shareholders or the directors, the company, if aggrieved by some wrong done to it, must sue or contrarily be sued in the name of a company. In this case, a lease deed was executed by the director of the company, which without the seal of the company. A suit was filed by the director and not the company to avoid lease on the ground that a new term has been fraudulently and scrupulously included in the lease deed by the defendant. It was held that a director of the board of directors or the managing director could not file the suit unless it was by the company in order to avoid any deed which admittedly was executed by one of the directors and admittedly also the company received the rent. The case was made out in the plaint and was not made by the company but some of the directors of the company, and the company was not even a plaintiff. If the company was aggrieved, it was the company which was to file the suit and not the directors. Therefore, the suit was held to be not maintainable. Even where a single shareholder virtually holds the entire share capital, a company is to be differentiated from such shareholder. In the well-known case of Solomon versus Solomon Company Limited, Solomon was prosperous leather merchant and he converted into a business into a limited company. So what happened was that the Solomon and Solomon company. So in this case, the Solomon was a leather merchant. He converted his business into a limited company. Then the company so formed consisted of Solomon, his wife, and five children, five of his children as members. The company purchased the business of Solomon for 39,000 euros. The purchase consideration was paid in terms of 10,000 euros debentures, conferring a charge over the company assets, 20,000 euros in fully paid and $1 each share, and balance in cash. The company, in less than 1 year, ran into difficulties and liquidation proceedings commenced. The assets of the company were not even sufficient to discharge the debenture, held entirely by Solomon himself, and nothing was left for the unsecured creditors. The House of Lords unanimously held that the company has been validly constituted, since the Act only required 7 members holding at least one each share. It said nothing about there being independent or that there should be anything like a balance of power in the constitution of the company. Hence, the business belonged to the company and not to Solomon. Solomon was its agent. The company was not the agent of the Solomon. In this case, basically, the court held that the company belongs, the company assets, liabilities, and whatever the whatever the obligation that company has, it belongs to the company itself, not to the Solomon. Solomon is just a shareholder of the company. Since he's just a shareholder, his liability is limited. So whatever the claim of the unsecured creditors is, it could be satisfied or it could be claimed against the company itself and not against the Solomon, since the company has a separate legal entity. So first, that's why the Solomon case is so important, because it was for the first time the court laid down the principle of separate legal entity under the company law. Likewise, in the case of Lee versus Lee Air Farming Limited, L formed a company with a share capital of £3,000, of which £2,999 were held by L. Now, he was also the sole governing director. In his capacity as a controlling shareholder, L exercised full and unrestricted control over the affairs of the company. L was a qualified pilot also and was appointed as the chief pilot of the company under the articles and drew a salary for the same. While piloting the company plane, he was killed in an accident. As the worker of the company were insured, the workers were entitled for compensation on death or injury. The question was, while holding the position of the sole governing director, could L also be an employee or worker of the company? Held that mere fact that someone was the director of a company was no impediment to his entering into a contract to serve the company. If the company was a legal entity, there was no reason to change the validity of the contractual obligations which were created between the company and the deceased. The contract could not be avoided merely because L was the agent of the company in its negotiation. Accordingly, L was an employee of the company and therefore entitled to compensation claim. So, in this case, basically, it was held that even though L has been occupying majority of the shares, 99.9% of the share is held by L. Then also, since he is working for the company, he will be considered as a worker of the company and will be entitled to the insurance amount since the company has a separate legal entity. So the company will be liable to compensate to the major shareholder L for working for the company in the capacity of vicarious liability. So since he is working as an employee of the company, he is considered as an employee of the company, he will be entitled for compensation under the workman compensation provided to every workman working for the company. Again, in Bacha F. Gushdar versus Commissioner of Income Tax Bombay, this is also a very important case. Mrs. Gushdar received certain amount as dividend in respect of shares held by her in a tea company. Under the Income Tax Act, agricultural income is exempted from the payment of income tax. As income of a tea company is partly agriculture, only 40% of the company's income is treated as income from manufacturer's sale, is treated as a is treated as income from manufacturer and sale and therefore liable to tax. Mrs. Gujdar claimed that the dividend income in her hand should be treated as a agricultural income up to 60%, as in the case of a tea company, on the ground that the dividend received by the shareholder represented the income of the company. The Supreme Court held that the income in the head of the company was partly agriculture, yet the income received by Mrs. Guzdar as dividend could not be regarded as agriculture income. So, in this case is very important because in this case the court held that since the company has a separate entity, whatever the agriculture activity the company is doing, the company will be entitled for rebate under the Income Tax Act because partly the income of the company is agriculture income, but the dividend received by the shareholders will not be covered under the agriculture income and will not be exempted under the Income Tax Act because the dividend which are received by the shareholders is received out of the production of the company and not from directly from the agricultural activity. That's why the dividend will not be covered under the rebate provided to the agriculture income. So that is all for today. In the next class, we will discuss further more features of the company like artificial person, limited liability, separate property, perpetual succession, transferability of shares, and common seal. In the next class, we will try to wind up the topic of meaning and nature and features of a company. Thank you so much for patiently listening. We will meet tomorrow. Thank you.